Hello, geometry students. I thought I would give you a video on how to do your scrapbooks just in case you miss class one of the days we do Zoom and you have any questions about how it is you need to set up each of your pages. Now, I have these instructions pretty clearly laid out on our scrapbook project rubric, and this is located in your Google Classroom. It's under quizzes, tests, and major projects, and there's materials in there. So I'm going to go through kind of each step of the rubric and read it to you, and then also show you in my book specific examples of everything that I read. It is not necessary for you to watch this video if you attend class every day, unless you want to, of course. So anyway, the scrapbook project, the first thing says is your cover page. So you get 10 points for doing the cover page correctly, 10 points out of 100. You need to have a title, which is Scrapbook Project, and a geometric design. So I have an example for you here. This is just the title. It says Scrapbook Project. There are some geometric designs on it. It said words should be typed or printed by hand neatly. If words are not neat, subtract 2 points. If the geometric design is not neat, subtract 2 points. So you do need to have your name here, Scrapbook Project, and then something written out neatly. Just, you can either type it or print neatly. Either way is fine. Okay, now the next point on this rubric says overall points. This doesn't correspond to a specific page, but just the rubric in general. It says at least 4 out of 5 images are cut from a magazine or newspaper. Partial credit given on the following basis. If only 3 images are cut out, you get 15 points. Only 2 images, 10 points, and only 1 image, 5. So the reason why I don't want you to just type into the internet, give me an example of a reflection, and then print that out and put it in a scrapbook is because that doesn't show me that you actually know how to recognize a reflection. So what I would like you to do is to find an example in a newspaper, magazine, advertising flyer, in any print media that you can find of the geometric topic that we're talking about. Now you're going to have 5 examples in this scrapbook. One of the 5 can be printed out from the internet. So if you're having trouble finding one of the 5, that's fine. But to get full credit, at least 4 of the 5 images do have to be images that you cut out and glued onto a piece of paper. All right, so let's talk about the first example, or page 1. The first example says reflection. Show a line of reflection. So I'm going to give an example here of a reflection. This is the line of reflection that you need to show. And then points are subtracted if no arrows are on the end of the line. Subtract 2 points. Notice that this line does have arrows on the end of it. And then if the lettering is not neat, subtract 2 points. So you can see that the lettering here is pretty neat. So that would be an example of a full credit page for an example of a reflection. Again, you're just finding an example in a magazine. Now I have several other examples here. Here's a nice one, for example, of a mountain and a lake. There's a line of reflection, and it says line of reflection. Let's see if we can find another good example. Here's one. This doesn't have to be perfect. The reflection doesn't have to show completely, but it's a ship in the ocean. There's a line of reflection with arrows on it, and it says line of reflection. So that would be full credit for a line of reflection. Now, the next example is an example of a translation. On your translation page, you need to show a translation vector. So here's an example of a translation vector. A vector has a point on one end and an arrow on the other. It's hard to see here in this picture, but there's a point and an arrow, and it's labeled neatly, translation vector, and there's the page, translation. Let me show you a couple other examples. Notice, by the way, on this example, that with a translation vector, you need to go from a point on the pre-image that matches the point on the image. So we're going from the trunk to the trunk, not from the trunk to the ear or the trunk to the tail, but corresponding point to corresponding point. Here's an example with 2 camels. Translation. Now the lettering on this is not that neat. I don't know for certain that would get full points. But we're going from the nose of the camel here to the nose of the camel there. Let me see if I can find you another good example. Here's a good example of a I believe this is a turkey. And we are going from the beak of the turkey here to the beak of the turkey there. So those would be examples of full credit for translations. Now, with a rotation, it says to show the center of rotation. So I'm going to show you what I mean by that. On this picture, one of the easiest ways to show a rotation is with a clock. So on this clock, the center of rotation has a dot and it's labeled center of rotation. It says show the degree of rotation. So you have to pick a spot that you're going to measure. This degree is 70 degrees and it was measured correctly with a protractor. Indicate the numerical value and use a degree symbol. If the lettering's not neat, subtract 1 point. All this information is written out for you. Again, I'm just doing the video in case you want a little bit more explanation. Here's an example of a bicycle wheel rotation. So it shows the center of rotations in the middle. They've measured 60 degrees and they've labeled their page neatly. That would be full credit for rotation. Now, dilation is the hardest example, and I am going to do my best to explain this in this short video. It will be beneficial if you can attend class to see how this is more easily done. But with a dilation, you're going to need a ruler. So this is going to involve measuring. With a dilation, you need to have two figures that are basically the same. They do not have to be exactly the same, but basically the same figure. One is bigger and one is smaller. Then you need to draw two lines with a ruler that meet at a point. That point needs to be labeled the center of dilation. Then you have to measure the distance from the center to your first figure. In this case, that was 6 centimeters. And then from your center to your second figure. In that case, that was 12. The scale factor here was 6 divided by 12, but they reduced it down to 1/2. You must reduce your fraction or you do not get full credit. So let me read you what it says in the directions. It says, with the dilation, show the two lines used to form the center of dilation by drawing these lines from the center of dilation to the same corresponding points of both images. So for example, by corresponding points, the ruler was used to draw from the center to the feet, the center to the head, corresponding points. We didn't go from the head to the butt, for instance. Okay. Then label the distances from the center of dilation to both the pre-image and the image. This has been labeled here with 6 and 12. Then, using precise numerical values in either inches or centimeters, indicate the scale factor used in simplified fraction form. If the lettering is not neat, reduce. So here's another example of a dilation using two lamps. They're the same lamp, but one is bigger than the other. Now, sometimes when you do this, you're not going to get a neat fraction. So, for example, we still have our two lines. We have our center of dilation clearly labeled. The distance from the center to the rim of this lamp is 2 inches, and the distance from the center to the rim of this lamp is 4 3/4 inches. Now, I am going to be measuring your figures to make sure you measured correctly, so make sure that you do that carefully. And keep in mind, the scrapbook project is worth 100 points, so it's like a full test. So here, they took the two numbers, 2 divided by 4 3/4, and made them both into just regular fractions. So 2 became 2 over 1. 4 3/4 became 19 over 4. Then we take a fraction divided by a fraction, you freeze the first one, then you multiply by the reciprocal, then go across the top and bottom. So this is kind of a weird number. It's 8/19. I do need your fraction, your answer to be in simplified fraction form. So that can be a question you can ask me during the Zoom session if you need help with the math on that. All right, the next example is a symmetric logo. For that one, it says to draw the line of symmetry and label it line of symmetry. If the figure is not a company logo, subtract 5 points. If the lettering is not neat, subtract 1 point. So here's an example of a company logo with a line of symmetry right down the middle. You do not have to show all the lines of symmetry. If your company logo has more than one line of symmetry, you just need to show one, label it correctly. So for example, here is, let me see if I can find you another good one. Here's one of a McDonald's logo. Again, we have a line of symmetry down the middle. It's labeled line of symmetry. Then the last page says, this grade sheet is included. I do need you to find a way to print out this grade sheet because I need to be able to mark on here what points you got for your project. So given that you have a couple weeks to work on this project, I'm hopeful that you can find a way to print. If for some reason you're unable to, email me and I can arrange for your parent to pick up a printed copy at the school for you. But this is important to have on the back of the scrapbook so that I can mark it up. So for example, if you look at these other scrapbooks from previous years, the instruction page is the last page of the scrapbook. So here's the scrapbook and then the rubric is on the last page. So it is important that you print out that last page. If for some reason you can't, I suppose it would be sufficient to write at the top scrapbook project on just a piece of paper and then put a row, name the rows for me, cover, overall, page 1, page 2, page 3. Do your best to write these things here. I will not be able to give you as specific of feedback if you don't have the printed words here, because if you did, I'd be able to circle, what you missed. But at the very least, you could just write the names on the left here of the pages and then write a column for points for me. As long as I have the page number and the points, that would also work. So again, either print out the copy or arrange to have a copy picked up at the school. I can have them in the lobby on Friday afternoons. Or just draw on a piece of paper the words scrapbook project and give me the page numbers and a blank column for points. I hope this has been helpful and I hope you have a great day. Thanks.